Welcome.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, it's the last day of the month, the last day of the quarter.
That's right.
It's an important day for us.
It is an important day for GoEngineer, but more importantly, coming up is a very important day for America.
Ooh, are you talking about
the day we celebrate our independence?
1776.
That's right. That's right. I actually got a good deal the other day. It was $17.76 for 2 months of clear.
Oh, really?
Through the airport.
Smart.
Clever marketing,
Yeah.
Right?
Are you a big fireworks guy?
I enjoy fireworks, no doubt. But
Yeah.
I am definitely not one of those people that invest.
Yeah.
I invest in going to find the best spot to like overlook the valley.
Oh, yeah.
We're blessed with mountains
We have
here.
some good spots.
Yeah, so we can usually find a high vantage point.
I like Ensign Peak up behind the Capitol
Oh, yeah?
because it's easy.
That's a
Yeah.
good spot.
I did a time lapse one year of all the
Oh, really?
fireworks. Yeah.
Was it cool?
It was way cool.
I grew up in a small town, little tiny mountain town, so you could go up to the water tower and you might run into a couple people, but not very many. And there was one main fireworks show in town. So yeah, you'd have like the couple people. And this was before like you could go buy aerials as a regular person. So you had one main fireworks show and it was really cool to watch from there.
Nice. I got to figure out a way to jimmy rig my flag onto the bucket of my excavator. Because
Are you just parking that in the front yard now?
it has been parked in the front yard it was parked there for like 2 weeks. It's in the backyard now. But you put the flag up there, it's 15 feet tall, and wave it around.
You have a 15-foot tall flag? Or
No.
the
excavator bucket
okay.
will go up that high. And then you put the flagpole on top of that.
Nothing says I'm an American celebrating independence like a tractor in your front yard with
I
a
know.
flag hanging off
I
it.
know.
You're literally using your excavator as a flagpole.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's special. Special.
We'll see if I can figure it out.
Well, yeah, so by the time people hear this episode, there's a good chance that the 4th of July will have come and gone.
You'll have a firework hangover.
Yeah. But to our listeners worldwide, especially those across the pond in the UK, I actually was just noticing that we have quite a bit of participation over there. So I want to say hello to those folks and thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Even
Ahoy.
though
Is that how you greet
a British person
Yeah.
in it, that's
know.
the way you, that's,
I don't know. Ahoy.
we're not even going to go there with our bad British accents. We won't do that to you all.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting day because I get to right a wrong. So found out through you, actually, you had a meeting with the technical team and we have a listener on our technical team who is like, man, that last episode you guys did really rubbed me wrong. And it was the automation episode.
Okay.
It was the
We
episode.
did two. It was one of them.
Yeah, it was the one where I was basically the rub for him was that I basically said for every job we lose to automation, there's another one created.
Did he disagree?
Which I would have thought would be a comfort to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. The point that he brought up to me was not everybody wants the job that gets created from the replacement of my other one.
Yeah.
And he explained some people, like a
true.
logger, for example, they've been doing this their whole life. They've grown to enjoy the comfort that it brings. They get to go home and sit on the porch every night. They usually move to a wooded area, to be closer to work. It's a whole entire lifestyle. And so it's not just a job anymore. It's where that job took you and the things that it affords you. And I hadn't really considered that. I was thinking one-dimensionally, and I was only thinking like people want a job that provides X amount of dollars. And if their job gets replaced by a new job that provides equal or more value in terms of money, it's the same or better, but it's really not.
I mean, this is part of what I was talking about.
Why didn't you didn't
I was
articulate it this way?
I said, even if new jobs are created, the pace at which people can leverage those jobs is slow. Like it takes time. And so
this is that's a whole different.
This is a component of it, because if you have to uproot your whole life and learn a new way of living just to take on a job, that's necessarily slows down the whole process. And my point was, jobs could and may be automated quicker than new jobs are created and filled. So it's a component of what I was saying.
I don't know why you're trying to prove this point again, because I still don't agree with that point very much.
I know.
I agree that the speed and whatever. I'm just saying I overlooked the folks who like doing things the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Well, I think the good thing is that there will always be opportunity for some people to do it the old-fashioned way, but that opportunity will dwindle and dwindle.
Right.
I think the upshot to this conversation is that all of our jobs will be affected by technology at some point in our lifetime. No matter what the job is, it will be affected, and in some cases disrupted, and in other cases totally eliminated by technology. So we all are going to have to deal with this on some level at some point in time, maybe once, maybe twice. If you're really bad about picking careers, maybe 3 times or 4 times.
See, and bad about picking careers, I think, is another thing that old Jeb would be displeased to hear, because maybe you did a really good job picking logging as your career choice, and they just so happen, Caterpillar or John Deere comes out with some new implement of forest destruction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they destroy forests. There are sustainable practices, whatever. But if there's a machine that can do the job of 5 men,
sure,
all of a sudden that job, that lifestyle, you're forced to choose. That's a bummer. That is a bummer.
A big bummer is that we're often faced with choosing a career before we've ever set foot in the real world. Like we have, especially if the career that you're pursuing requires a half decade of education, you're making that decision when you're 18 years old and you have no context for the choice. So if you like operating equipment because maybe you've done it in the past, or you grew up on a farm or whatever, if you just love operating equipment, then maybe you go and pursue that as a career. But you would not really be equipped to even start thinking about, is this job going to exist in 10 years?
Right.
Or even be able to effectively assess how big of an impact that will be. You may think, oh yeah, it won't be around in 10 years, but I'll figure it out then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Someone who's going into logging isn't likely checking the new patents that are coming out from all the heavy equipment
or like the
manufacturers.
historical decline of loggers in the US over the past 20 years, and whether or not that's accelerating or not. Like that's important. That's why it's almost always a sure bet to go into areas where are quite broad and the pace is.
Are you giving advice to our young listeners out there?
I'm just saying that there
I
are
kind of like this.
There are certain industries that are not going to go away. Cybersecurity, that's not going to go away. That's just going to become more and more relevant.
Sure.
Just computer programming, data science, like all of these industries. If you're looking at changing careers or just starting a career or starting an education, you could not go wrong going into any one of those, I think.
Unless you wanted to be outside.
Well, you can go into fields.
Literal fields?
Dude, yeah.
No pun intended.
Hey.
Sorry.
If you want to go outside.
Tyler flustered. He's like, man, that was a good pun. I should have rolled with it. Sorry, I got you off track.
If you're a data scientist, you can be working on a laptop in Bali. And you could probably find an employer that's going to support that, or freelance, or do whatever. In many ways, these high-tech jobs are more freeing.
Yeah, I could see that. But alas, I wanted to apologize for overlooking, because that's important, right? Like that lifestyle, and that could lead to some anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was kind of discrediting that anxiety in that, oh, there will be another job. Well, the job won't be the same. So while it's true, like we're all going to have to change. I liked that you brought that up, because the reality is there are certain aspects of coding that's like the next big thing, right? But there are mundane tasks in coding that will become automated. Basically, automation is, at this point in our lives, it's taking all the low-hanging fruit, which are the mundane, simple tasks. It's the tasks that are repeatable, that nobody really likes to do anyhow, for the most part.
Yeah, but it's not that way by design. But by design,
it just makes it easier to implement.
Yeah, it's the more easily automated something is, and the more economic pressure there is to automate it, those are going to be the first in line.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are way more high value things that automation could take care of if we could automate it, but we just can't. So yeah, the mundane, simple tasks are the ones we automate, because one, there's economic pressure, but also it's easy. It's like 3D printing in that way, right? Like I just told you about that automotive article where it's like, and maybe we'll talk about this in a second, or maybe this is a good segue, but it's like, when are we going to start? Let me actually read the article title. I like it.
Real quick, Wyatt, before you move on.
Sure.
At one point we were talking about CAD software and the future of CAD software. And I remember making the point that,
you would remember a point you made.
It's undesirable that you have a human there sitting there clicking the mouse and moving the mouse and things like that. And there is likely a day that comes where you speak to the program what you want in human language, and it designs it for you. And I've been exploring something called DALL-E this week, which is an artistic AI that builds 2D images based off human language. So it's built off OpenAI.
Do you just say left, right, forward, back?
You could say, draw me a picture in the style of Da Vinci depicting a infinite garden. And it would come out and sketch.
Way.
Yeah. And the more descriptive you are, the better it becomes. And so you could imagine, if you think of a Da Vinci drawing, it's like on not papyrus, but like old
some canvas
and like light brown, like what's the what's that guy's name? It's not Vesuvius. I don't know.
You're talking to the wrong guy.
You know the drawing of the man in the circle?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that style drawing, and then of an infinite garden, and it would do it. And it would give you, like, in the matter of seconds, 12 things. So even art is becoming automated in ways. So we don't know where it's going to end.
What's that noise?
That was my watch scraping the...
You got to get control of that thing.
Hey, the size of I'm just getting so animated about computers taking over art.
Well, it's scary.
It is.
Well, I don't know.
Scary is an emotional reaction that...
Thank you.
It's a choice of perspective.
Sure, just like our last conversation, it's a choice of perspective.
Yeah.
But it gets pretty tough at a certain point to accept that reality. I also just watched Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've seen that movie...
It's been a few years. I saw it when it came out.
It's a little... if you're afraid of automation or AI, this will wake up some anxiety in you, this movie. It's pretty cool. I like the movie.
You want to see something cool? You are dead center of the greatest scientific event in the history of man.
Hello.
Hi.
I know it's CG, but the most memorable part of that was the house.
This building isn't a house. It's a research facility.
Oh, so cool.
Isn't it so cool?
Yeah, they fly the helicopter in the first part of the movie, and he's like, hey, when are we going to be on so-and-so's property? And he's like, we've been flying over his estate for the last 2 hours.
Yeah. It's all built into the landscape and the rock walls. And
you would like
awesome.
that.
Oh, I love it.
It's a very beautiful house.
It's a research facility.
So if you're interested in watching a rated R movie, that's a great one. I recommend it. And if you want to be freaked out about AI.
Do you think anyone pays attention to movie ratings outside of Utah?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, don't take your kids to this one. It'll freak them the heck out.
Yeah, it's not a kid's movie. My memory of it.
Yeah. I think people pay attention to it. So this is totally off topic, not 3D printing at all.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Great Outdoors?
Of course. I hadn't seen it, and you were giving me a hard time.
It's
so I went
classic.
And
you rented it?
Yeah. I don't remember how I got a hold of it.
It is an absolute must-watch summer movie.
My favorite part is Dan Aykroyd with the giant camcorder.
Oh, yeah, when he comes in. So speaking of that scene, so the whole movie, it's PG.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
PG back in those days was
different.
actually, it's changed, right? PG's gotten a little softer nowadays.
Yeah.
But rated R has also gotten a lot more intense.
Especially with streaming now, I do not pay attention to movie ratings at all. Like when you're streaming,
we're desensitized, Tyler.
Oh, definitely. But I do remember watching this thinking, there's some moments in here that are a little
edgy.
Yeah.
It's so classic. Watch it.
John Candy.
And for those outside of the country, I want to feedback. If someone dares watch that movie and just tell me how American it is, how American does it seem? I think it would be really funny to get that feedback. But anyway, let's get back to additive manufacturing.
Let's do it.
Or 3D printing. This article that I read is titled "When 3D Printing Will Move Past Pet Projects in the Auto Industry."
Okay.
And it sounds like a title that we would come up with.
Yeah.
Because it fits the theme of everything we talk about. And this goes back in line with the implementation of new technology. We always try and gather the low-hanging fruit first. With additive manufacturing, we've been seeing people kind of pick and choose that over the last few years. And I didn't know this, but BMW from, let's see, like 2015 to it might be current day, has been using additive manufacturing for their water pumps.
Some of them.
Some of their water pumps, not all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, because you did, because you've probably seen it come and go and kind of the hype that follows these applications.
And some partners we worked with in the past had, that water wheel impeller has made its way into a lot of promotional videos throughout the years.
Why?
Well, because of the story behind it.
What is the story? The fact that a big, large OEM is using it?
At some scale beyond prototyping.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a fairly complex part, and it's a metal part. So it had a lot going for it.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, especially with automotive, any large OEM printer company wants in. With every major automotive manufacturer.
Oh yeah. They'll try to make a case at any level to get in that ecosystem, because that ecosystem brings immense scale and huge market.
Yeah. Well, and people trust it, right? Like people trust, hey, if Chevy's using this, it's probably good enough for us.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
And then you might see it be implemented in aerospace next. It might, grow upwards, but I think for the most part it grows downward. If is that a weird way to put that?
Automotive and aerospace markets are quite a bit different.
For sure. But like the acceptance of certain transportation guidelines, like we have certifications that will work for both automotive and aerospace.
Yeah.
And the testing standards there's some overlap.
Sure.
Especially on interiors. Right?
Sure. Yeah. But I kind of suspect, at least at the current scales, if you have a technology that finds its place, finds its home in automotive, it, by definition, is probably not the best fit for aerospace and vice versa.
Okay. You dweeb.
What?
Okay. I get it.
I'm not
You've proved your point. Never mind, everyone. I rescind my previous comments. There's zero overlap.
I don't even think I was disagreeing with you.
It's just a total side. This is our problem. This is why we can't have short episodes. Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is, when will we move past the pet projects? When do we move past, like, this is for real now? Mm-hmm. The Ford Maverick we've talked about on previous episodes. They've got some sort of little repository of printed parts that you can put in the Maverick.
What do you think they mean by pet projects?
Hand-picked.
Like a single person champion?
Single person, like
there's a single person in that organization that feels very strongly about using the technology and pushes it forward?
No, not necessarily. I think what they mean by pet projects is, when will this be a legitimate manufacturing process that's actually chosen for a purpose other than just a little flair, just a little marketing flair?
Well, we talked about one example on our last episode.
Remind me.
That was the Chevy Tahoe.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So we are moving into that realm.
Yeah.
Is it just going to take a few more of those instances where it's like, yeah, this is a real deal now?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. And you'll have existing technologies that remain unchanged and just become more widely accepted. The risk profile is reduced. People have better understanding about case studies that make it work, that prove it works. And then you'll also have technological advances that push it even further and further. So, over the course of 5 or 10 years, I think the landscape will change quite a bit.
Do you think the powder-based systems are the ones that are really going to take off?
For in automotive? Yeah, I think so.
Whether it be metal or plastics?
Yeah, I mean, that's my best guess right now. Based on the technologies that are available today or commercialized today, they meet the demands of automotive most completely in terms of throughput and, precision tolerances and also size. So I think that they're best positioned. But who knows what could change? Things could change. Usually, we're not getting a lot of significantly different technologies. We're seeing technologies that are progressing and
offshoots.
Yeah, offshoots. Little tweaks here and there that improve the process, optimize the process.
But the base technologies they're the same. Largely. Do you think part of worldwide adoption or just major adoption in these instances would be helped or hurt by having more people with 3D printers in their home?
It's sort of a question of user satisfaction. Is that what you're getting to?
No, I just posed the question. It was one of those miracle questions that just popped into my mind. I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
if I do say so myself.
Yeah. Is it helpful to the industry if homeowners have them in their houses?
Mm-hmm.
I say yes.
Why?
Because if you have technology awareness, it allows you to use that as a marketing vector, for one. We've seen that. We've talked about examples of products that are marketed as 3D printed. So they're using the technology as a path for marketing. And that's not going to land on anyone who isn't aware of 3D printing. And then there's this idea that as adoption of the technology grows and you have more people experimenting with it that all have different problems and backgrounds and start to look at how this technology may apply to those problems, that proliferates the technology further and it becomes sort of exponential growth if it starts to meet and solve some of those problems. Like we've seen it with artists, fashion designers start getting their hands on 3D printers, and suddenly you start to see changes in the software, changes in the hardware to better fit their needs. We see it in the dental space.
We just saw it in PolyJet with medical, the X-ray capable material.
Yeah, exactly. And so 3D printing as a whole needs more relevance. They actually need to solve more problems. And the only way you do that is find out what those problems are. And you don't go out and search for problems. People come to you with problems.
I am going to play the devil's advocate here, not totally on purpose, but I think it could hurt. I think it could hurt. 3D printers being the next toaster oven could be not good for the industry, because think about injection molding, for example. People don't have those on their bench tops. There are bench top units.
Yeah, but
they're not a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
You never hear someone, oh yeah, my grandson's got an injection molder.
Yeah.
Or, my kid's got an injection molder.
Doesn't happen.
But that's wide, like injection molding is widely adopted and accepted worldwide. Like that is a standard. My fear with everyone having a benchtop unit printer is like what would you call it? A consumer grade printer. We know the problems that come with those. They have reliability issues. People are always having to work on them and tune them, and they become difficult to use for an everyday user. It's not a Ronco set it and forget it type of thing. When people start printing their own parts and trying to utilize them for their own needs and wants, my friend printed a cup holder for his truck. Works great, right? As a cup holder. I saw a video on Instagram yesterday of a guy that used it, made a big 3D print on a hobbyist machine for cutting bent tube precisely. So it's just a cutting fixture. Great for those purposes. But as people start to push the limits or use a new material and it fails and it warps, it bends, they can't get it to stick to the build sheet, or when they get a successful part, it isn't strong enough.
Right.
Whether it be bad design or whatever, they lose confidence in the technology. So then all of a sudden you see a 3D print from Stratasys or MakerBot or Mark Forged, these other companies out there, and it looks the same because it has the layer lines, an FDM print we're talking here. Your confidence isn't there. Even though it's a far superior print, you've already kind of...
Well, that's why when you asked it, I immediately went to, this is a question of customer satisfaction, because the experience of that person is going to shape.
How many people, as a percentage, do you think are satisfied with a hobby grade printer for beyond 12 months? beyond 4 months.
Well, it's really, it just depends on their expectations. And I would say the expectations of the average consumer were unmet.
It is a
3D
set
printing.
it. The expectation is set it and forget it.
This is largely
throw my print file at it.
This is largely why 3D printing had a bit of a stumble like 2014, 2015, 2016.
Yeah. And we talked about that.
The push was into consumer ready printers. Like you said, as common as a toaster oven. And the reality was the technology, the software, everything, not ready for that. And it left a sour taste in people's mouths. And it hurt. It hurt the industry for, a few years. It opened up new opportunities at the same time. Many of the companies that we're talking about now, as if they're new, were actually formed in that time period. They were born in that time period, kind of, flew under the radar for a handful of years, released product, and, they're more well-known now and finding some success now, but they may not have formed. They may not have found the funding if we didn't go through that period in like 2012, 13.
That's true. I guess my curiosity is why or when will, like, when you get a printed metal part off the Exact Metal system or any other powder-based metal system, it's grainy, right? It feels sugar cube.
Yeah.
And why can't we just accept that? Like, people have accepted castings for ages. Die cast, all kinds of, like, sand casting, and you don't think twice when you see like your motorcycle engine has some cast components on it. You're like, man, I sure wish they would have CNC'd that.
Yeah.
We all know CNC finish looks better, but like, you don't even question it. You're just like, yeah, it works.
In many cases it works. In other cases it wouldn't.
But
right?
The OEMs know that. In the cases that don't work, they don't make it to us. So when we buy a product, for the most part, like a motorcycle, you trust that Honda, Kawasaki, whoever did the work to put that thing through the ringer and make sure that it met their satisfaction before it made it to the showroom floor.
Yeah.
And was sold to me.
Yeah.
So at what point do the manufacturers, I guess what I'm saying is, at what point do the manufacturers start pumping that stuff out to the public? Because I think that's what it's going to take to increase confidence in an additively manufactured part.
Yeah.
Not just the fact that, like, we have to point out that this was additive. Maybe that we get to the point where we don't even point that out anymore.
We need to.
Pet projects.
Yeah, we need to.
Where it's just there.
Yeah. We need to. If you're trying to justify it, like, higher cost by saying it's 3D printed, it's cool. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it will get there when additive manufacturing beats out all other options.
Cost-wise.
Not just cost-wise, but that's certainly a big component. Performance would be another situation. And for a cylinder head, like, a cast surface finish is just fine in many areas of it. But for like an implantable, that's not.
Sure.
So in some ways, you do need some people to say this is good enough and accept it and buy those products. And in other ways, you do need people on the other side saying this is not good enough and continuing to push forward.
Yeah. And just understanding the why behind it's not good enough, because we know the OEMs have control and can tweak things, change things, make them better, but it takes louder voices. We need the feedback.
Yeah.
Kind of like we need the feedback on this podcast.
That is true. We appreciate all the feedback, especially when it's,
Anger?
No, not anger, but, hey, more directed towards you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So as long as it's someone, I made someone upset.
When they told me like, hey, I have something to say about that last episode, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, great. I said
You
something.
had a guilty conscience.
I said something. Not a guilty conscience, but I thought that I probably took the more controversial side. I think.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I took the friendlier route, and look at me. I still messed up. Well, we should move on. We are trying to keep this one a little shorter. We have some show and tell here today that's brought to you by Juicy Filaments, our pretend filament brand. And today, Juicy Filaments, I'm told, has acquired an old Stratasys machine. And they're going to try and jailbreak it to do some of their own material developments.
Really?
Yeah. So, anyway.
I seriously question if they have the technical background to do that.
Oh, the CEO and president and vice president and COO, they'll get it done.
He's the full cabinet.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get into this ad. Hey, print heads. Has the GMO scented aroma from cheap PLAs tainted your print lab? It's time to get juicifying fragrances. Juicy Labs has taken their filament engineers to France to become sommeliers. Now, our trained aromatic stewards have been unleashed to give you filaments the finest scents. Give your filaments the finest scents without taking any more cents out of your pocket. All Juicy Filaments will now fill the labs with Juicy Aromas trademark. Try our new Midnight Obsession PLA. From the first layer, you'll be greeted with the intense woody aromas of succulent marshmallow toasting perfectly on a summertime campfire. As we near the end of the print, a brown sugar mid-plate focus submits to a toasty, fruity, and cantaloupian peak. I don't know what that means. Midnight Obsession finishes honey sweet with a decadent maple-like crescendo of waffly goodness. With Juicy Filaments, Juicy Aromas, you'll wonder if you're printing or dining at a Michelin star restaurant. I can't believe we're not eating Juicy Filaments right now. So, evidently, in the plan is edible filaments.
Apparently.
The way that ends makes me think that perhaps we could eat some of these prints.
You know,
I'm not going to be the taste tester.
Scented filament will come, along with all of the consumer, like the homeowner printers. Scented filaments will come.
Well, we can also speculate here, based on this advertisement, that they plan to have different scents at different stages of the build. How are they going to have that time released scent?
Who knows? Did I ever tell you the story about Febreze?
Yes. I think you have. It was an accident, right?
No, it wasn't an accident, but it was an unsuccessful product until they scented it. Because Febrze's whole purpose is to eliminate odors, right? Well, the problem is...
Doesn't it just encapsulate the odor and fall to the floor?
I don't actually know how the chemistry works, but it's supposed to eliminate or mask odors. Problem is, people don't realize when their house stinks. So they're not gonna buy Febreze because they don't know that their house smells like
old man feet.
A horror show. So so it wasn't successful until they started scenting it and then marketing it as like, okay, it's fresh air, and then people bought it and used it.
Maybe this will work for Juicy Filaments to take off.
Maybe.
Should I? Now that Juicy Filaments has brought us this...
Yeah, let's grab that.
Okay, I'm going to take...
Hey, be careful not to touch this camera.
I'm taking out my earplugs. Okay. This is the... I'm showing it to the camera right now. The only way you're going to see this is to go visit us on YouTube. How does it look? Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks good.
Oh, yeah.
Would you look at that?
Snazzy. This is your sign?
Yep. My little brother did the design for this, and I cut that acrylic out all on my own.
With the jigsaw?
Yep. Yeah, jigsaw worked great on the kitchen counter and didn't damage the kitchen counter. But hot glue gun was the secret weapon here.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Hot glue gun is an underutilized tool.
Oh, big time. You can get them for like $2, by the way,
Oh, I know.
at your local.
I think you can get them for
good
free
store.
with certain Harbor Freight coupons.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah, I went for the high temp model.
I am surprised that Ryobi is the only company that has made a battery operated hot glue gun.
Well, it's probably not a hot seller. When are you like traveling to hot glue something?
Well, I know, but
you shouldn't be taking a hot glue gun anywhere but your kitchen counter anyhow.
Yeah, but how annoying is the
or
cord
your craft room
when you're
if
trying
so
to
lucky.
when you're trying to set the gun somewhere and you've got glue dripping everywhere and it's on your skin and you're like, it's only going to burn for 3 more seconds. You don't want to be dealing with the cord and you trip, you get hot glue in your eye.
Which brings me to a thought. Do they have battery powered soldering irons?
I don't know.
Same problem. You trip over the cord.
Yeah.
I trip over my soldering iron cord
I have
all
a
the time.
butane soldering iron and it's terrible.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, don't use one of those. I see you brought something too.
Yeah, I just brought we showed the metal parts last week.
Oh,
But
should I describe what that is? It's a backlit sign.
I think
just
that
in
was
case-
obvious.
Was it?
Oh,
not to
for the
listeners.
audio. Not for the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to make everybody happy here.
It's a backlit sign. Yeah.
Okay. And it's circular and I'm going to hang it on the wall. Now, let's describe yours with words.
Yeah. This
too.
is just going to be something that you might want to view on YouTube. But last week we were showing some components on the putter project that I'm helping out with. And these are the PolyJet prototypes that I actually printed before I printed the metal, just to ensure that you could actually assemble it, which is not something you could take for granted when, especially when you're working on other people's designs but even your own designs. Like we've talked about this, it's really hard to anticipate how something is going to go together. And if it needs to come apart, also take it apart. So there were some changes made to these that were discovered with, in this case, PolyJet, but just a polymer plastic print. These are color prints, which comes into play on this one. This is like a carbon fiber overlay. So this was printed from a 3MF file out of SolidWorks.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. And it all fits together, which is what you want.
Ooh, do that towards the mic. That actually sounded pretty nice. That was some solid engagement.
So I like to do tapered bosses when I'm
they bottom
assembling.
out? Or just so they self-center a little better?
So that it's easier to assemble, especially when you have, in this case, you have 4 posts.
Okay, I see 'em.
And oftentimes, unless you're assembling them straight in, it can really easily bind, especially if it's tight. You'll try to come in at an angle and get one in and rock it in. You can't do that if they're both straight and there's only like a 5 or 10 thousandths clearance on the radius. That can be pretty difficult. So if I'm printing parts, one of the things I do quite often is I add like a 2 to 5 degree taper. And that really helps with
what
the
type
assembly.
of clearance?
Same amount of clearance.
You don't ever worry about, because with a taper, you could introduce a situation where it never bottoms out.
Well, I don't do that. So the taper in this case, the taper goes down about 50% the length of the...
Oh, okay. The boss.
So it's more than a chamfer, but
you could think of it like that. Just a really large chamfer.
Yeah.
You only do it to the male end. You don't taper the female hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
That's correct.
Okay.
Typically.
So the male end is all you taper.
And it depends on the depth. So like on this one, I felt like I had enough engagement that,
There's just a tiny bit. Yeah, I could hear
there
it.
is a tiny bit of play there. So
that's a good tip.
Yeah.
A tech tip.
Tech tip.
It's a pretty good tech tip.
So yeah, it's a good looking.
You going to say tech tip again?
Tech tip.
Who was it that was bugging me about saying something too many times the other day? Jeb one?
Everyone. I don't know. And then they had these little weights.
Little counterweights?
Yeah. I had a hard time printing these
Show
in
that to
metal.
the camera, would you? Look at the detail there.
We'll see if that gets picked up.
Look at that.
So it's a tiny little screw. This was too small for
Those
me
are
to
good
print
threads.
in metal. These are good polyjet threads. Polyjet's great
do
for
you know
prototyping.
what size those are? Are those a standard thread?
It's a 1/4 20.
The other day actually had a customer ask, what are the smallest threads you feel comfortable printing? And I kind of used 1/4 as like, I wouldn't do anything beyond that, and especially if I plan to use it multiple times.
Yeah.
That's when I'm thinking of an insert, some sort of a brass insert.
Yeah. I wish I could use brass inserts, but on this design, so if you look at the size of these bosses, there's no space for an insert.
Yeah.
And so I would have had to make significant changes to the design to incorporate an insert, which I just wasn't willing to do.
Sure.
So when it comes to the final version, like this is going to be steel. The putter face will be steel. This
316.
316L is what we're going to be using. And then this we're going to use the Origin, a DLP
Cool
material, which will be more durable than the polyjet. And we are just going to print the pilot hole, and then we're going to tap it. And then we'll probably use some sort of adhesive on the threads, meaning those weights, we'd probably advise, we're going to be giving the putter away. So
how could someone enter this said giveaway?
You got to be there in person in Chicago on July 18th.
So just buy yourself a plane ticket that's going to cost $800 and you might win a putter.
If you're in the area and you can make it, then you're eligible. But
you mentioned this last episode, but where is it going to be and when?
Oh, it's in the Chicago area. I think it's specifically Naperville at a Topgolf.
Oh, it's at a Topgolf.
Yeah, it's at a Topgolf.
Nice. Okay. Can we find more information about this on our website?
Yeah, on GoEngineer's website. I would just Google GoEngineer Golf July 18th.
Okay.
Try that.
All right.
So yeah, we're going to use some adhesive because with the plastic threads, like they'll hold, but if you take them in and out, they're going to loosen up.
Sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I did want to bring up, and you mentioned this last episode, you did change some things on this to make it better for metal printing. Can you show us what you changed?
Well, specifically for metal printing. Oh yeah, that's right. So that was the original design with the ribbing. I'm calling them ribs. They're not really ribs, but
it's like a scaffolding.
Yeah, like a scaffolding.
Triangulated scaffold. And,
we had a discussion about how we wanted to, like the decision tree that you make when you're orienting a part, especially for metal. You're trying to consider what surfaces am I going to have to cut or finish, and what surfaces do I not want to touch. And the obvious surface was this surface. That's going to be covered up. It's not going to be visible to the user. And it's going to be the minimum amount of support. So we opted to print them up this way, which meant that there was going to be overhangs, 0-degree overhangs. And anyway, we orient that, there's going to be 0-degree overhangs, which we'd have to fill with support. So,
and the machine is capable of bridging to some degree, right? But not very far.
Not very far. And the surface quality really suffers because you have this powder bed, which is just little individual grains of alloy, and you're hitting a laser into that, and
they're floating.
They're floating and they're solidifying, and so that underside really becomes very fuzzy, and has porosity because it's like half fused powder, etc. So I asked him, "Hey, can I change this up?" And we filled it with a lattice, which helps quite a bit. The lattice still has, fuzzy texture to it, but it's a lot less noticeable.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we've done it. We kept a pretty short episode today. Short being like 10 minutes shorter than normal.
So we're at about 50 minutes.
Yep, we are. Exactly. But before we go, I want to share a YouTube channel. I'm not going to talk much about it, but it's called Warped Perception.
Oh,
that's my YouTube of the day.
Okay.
It's he does a lot of miniatures, engines, So he does jet engines, which was how I found his channel. So I kind of geeked out. He did a jet engine with a clear body, so you could actually see what was going on inside of it. That was pretty neat.
I think I saw that thumbnail and I didn't click it because I thought, oh, that's an electric turbine. Is it not electric?
No, it's gas. In fact, he talks about the combustion, which is why I liked it. He did a really good explanation of the intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust, the stages. He explained it. He likened it to a 4-stroke engine. So me having some understanding of that with my motorcycles was like, oh, that makes sense now. Now when I'm on an airplane and I see a jet engine, I kind of understand a little more about what's happening on the front end versus the back end. And this jet engine's awesome. He also has a little mini Harley Davidson panhead engine, and it sounds like a panhead. It's insane.
That's so cool.
Normally when you hear these miniature engines, I don't know if you've ever watched any of these videos, they're kind of higher pitched. They sound a little different. This one was like dialed. He's an interesting guy. I haven't looked much else into his channel, but he does some crazy stuff with jet engines. And I'm going to assume, and I think safely, that he uses additive somewhere along the lines. So I'm going to watch more of his videos and see what I find.
He took an off-the-shelf turbine and then put an acrylic skin on it. Is that what he did?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. He has machining capabilities, so in his videos you'll get a little bit of his machining, and I assume some 3D printing in there somewhere.
If not, he should.
Cool channel.
Cool.
Warped Perception.
All right. Sweet.
You got one for us?
Nope.
Nothing?
No.
All right. On that,
call it a day.
That's a heck of an episode.
Hey, we're about to start a long weekend here.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
Take
See
care.
ya.